So I met Christopher Priest this weekend at the Wizard World Portland Comic Show, and I want to talk a little bit about it. So let's go. I've been a comic fan for 30 plus years. I never paid attention to the talent on the books, just the story and the characters. If the art was crap, it would distract me from the story, so I usually dumped my subscription. As I got older, I paid attention a little bit more. Early favorites were Michael Golden, Jim Lee, and Todd McFarlane, of course. Michael Golden has a wonderful issue, Avengers 10. That's kind of where I fell in love with his art style. Some of the best art even today. In my opinion, it was the first appearance of Rogue. Jim Lee was, Batman Hush and other things over the years. And Todd McFarlane, Spider-Man Spawn. So about 7 years ago, I stopped collecting comics. The continuity was no longer respected by the major companies and the editors. Too many starts and stops. There's way too many crossover events. And really abrupt character changes. Not staying true to the original character designs, in my opinion. I think updating a character's fine, but you have to stay true to how certain things work. How powers work, limits, rules. And there were just way too many changes. Now, getting out about 7 years ago, I missed a lot of the SJW infusion. But I'd like to say I was in the first round where the product started to go downhill in the late 2000s. So at the 2020 Wizard World Comic Show in Portland this weekend, I walked by a booth and I didn't recognize Christopher Priest. I've never really seen a picture of him. I read the sign and I looked at the sign, then I looked at the booth, and then I looked back at the sign, and I said, "Hey, you're Christopher Priest." And I quickly introduced myself. I remember a YouTube video from a year ago. More on that in a minute. But after the YouTube video, I really, really liked him and he became a favorite as a writer. So I started looking up all the comics and stuff that he read, and I started picking things up, which made me even a bigger fan. I must have fanboyed him, as I can't remember the next couple of minutes after that. So more on my conversation with him in a minute. The video was actually a little bit more than a year ago. On February 25th, 2018, Comics Matter with your boy Zach did a video reviewing an article written about Christopher Priest. The article was called Interview Christopher Priest on Being Black and the Industry's Future. In it, and I'm going to kind of summarize it a little bit because there's a lot of things he said, which is why I gravitated to him so much. And I think a lot of the things he said in the article are relevant today. But he said he's working in comics for 40 years and writing them for more than 30 years. He's covered almost every aspect of production, both creative and technical. For years, he said he would get a call every 18 months from either Marvel or DC, where they would inevitably offer him a character of color, or black character, or Latino character. As he recanted the days at Marvel when they wanted him to write the Falcon, and they were upset that he wouldn't have him speaking jibe. His point was the character was a social worker with a background in education and social sciences. He wouldn't speak like that. He goes, in the article, he said, "I don't want to be a black writer. When did I become a black writer? I used to be a guy who would write Spider-Man, Deadpool, Batman. Why am I no longer qualified to write these characters?" He said the industry has moved into a trend where they were no longer hiring writers, they were more like casting writers. And I couldn't agree more. And that's part of what led me to Comicsgate. And it's part of what drove me away from comics. He continued to say in the article, "Don't tell me I can't write a Chinese lesbian superhero. That's bullshit. I can write anything. The problem is that two major companies don't have anybody of color in upper management, with the exception of Jim Lee. They're terrified of the Twitterverse, but half of those people aren't even reading the comics either. They're reading it online or heard it from somewhere or pirated it, but they're not buying the comics. They're getting on Twitter and commenting, and the companies are afraid of them and guiding their publishing program based on it. Just do good stories is what he said. Well told, and you'll see the return on it." And I couldn't agree more. That's also Comicsgate principle, as well as it is what drove me to want to write. So I immediately connected with him. He said the industry has to change from top to bottom. The bottom end of the industry feeds into this chokehold of a distribution system. He also said he informed in the news article that the industry is still controlled by a handful of people, and if you piss off the wrong person, you're unemployed. That's got to stop. There's only a handful of people whose personal sensibilities determine which books get greenlit. They need to be willing to greenlit projects, even ones they don't like. So I happened to ask him, over his years of experience, what was his favorite piece of work. He said a novel called 1999. He said it's his Astro City, a self-contained superhero universe. He also mentioned it in the article, so it's interesting that had never changed. I believe he told me the story was going to be told by a small publisher just before they closed shop, so it never really got released. It is available on Amazon in a Kindle version, and I already bought it. I think I came home and bought it right away, but I said, if it's this good and you love it this much, you should really think about producing it in a graphic novel format or another format. It was a great conversation overall, and I told him about my Rubicon universe that I'm currently working on. I introduced him to Eclipse, who I'm doing the art contest right now, up to $600. Deadlines for January 31st if anybody's working on it. And I revealed some of my upcoming strategies. I think he was very intrigued, and he asked me several questions and gave me advice, and he even gave me his email. He liked the concept work and the background for Eclipse, and he said good art is the key to drawing fans in. I also offered him advice and encouraged him to consider crowdfunding, as I felt he would be a big draw to Comicsgaters and normies alike. He certainly has the talent. He's an impressive writer, creator, and person. So I urge all of you to follow his work. So I encourage you to explore a little bit more about him. If you get a chance, you can go to his website, maybe reach out to him and encourage him to put that 1999, maybe update it a little bit or something, but put it out there. Tell him you'd like to see it on Indiegogo. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and we will talk to you later.